This is TWiT.
And incidentally, this executive order, which says beginning September 20th, no transactions between the parent company ByteDance and any American entity, including you. So effectively, it cuts off their oxygen supply from the United States. It's not just for TikTok; it's also for WeChat. And CNET brought up an interesting point. They feel like because WeChat is so important in China, it's important here for Chinese Americans, people with family in China, but it's like really important in China. They can actually impact iPhone shipments by as much as 30% globally. So
it depends on one of the big problems of these two executive orders is that it uses this really, really vague sentence and saying
it declares a national emergency, which I think is overstating the case.
No, absolutely, and that's one of the weaknesses that TikTok is playing to sue them for. But the situation is that it said that this vague thing about interactions with entities, which could mean as far as not only would Apple be forced to remove WeChat and TikTok from its own app store, would also have to remove it from international app stores. And not only would it affect TikTok, but would also involve any company that is owned or invested in by ByteDance and Tencent. The thing is that they put a 45-day grace period on this, and the order says that only after 45 days will the Secretary of Commerce actually define what interactions are actually covered by this executive order. So this is they've created what has to be an intentional state of absolute chaos here, which they could have avoided by simply saying that we are ordering that these two apps not be allowed to be sold or distributed in the United States of America. They chose not to do that. They
also, and this is TikTok is reportedly going to sue them, and maybe as soon as today. They haven't yet filed suit, but reportedly in the lawsuit, one of the things they'd say is, "All right, where's the findings? Show us the evidence that we're nefarious. You can't just ban something because you don't like it."
Potential nefariosity, Leo. That is what the basis of this is.
And I understand it's complicated. I'm not a fan of what the Chinese government does to its citizens. I'm not a fan of locking kids in cages
and the Great
either.
Wall, where American social networks are blocked from within China, which is not a precedent you want to.
Just because they do it to us doesn't mean we should do it to them. That's kind of childish. I also think that it's reasonable to say, look, we're not going to use Huawei gear in critical infrastructure like 5G. I think that that's reasonable. There's prudent.
A legal issue here, though, too, and that is they're not banning behavior, which is how these orders usually are handled. They're targeting specific companies. They're not saying it is illegal to do this with data, which would be fine because then TikTok couldn't do it, Facebook couldn't do it.
Yeah, there's some privacy issues. Damn straight.
Yes.
Let's fight it. Let's figure that one out.
But they are targeting companies, not behavior.
They're not even targeting companies. I think they're targeting people. They're targeting the Chinese people.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really what's going on, and I think that's reprehensible.
Or the K-pop stans who have been causing mischief.
Well, if the president could figure out a way to ban K-pop, I think he would. But
the K does stand for Korea.
Yeah. Ostensibly an ally. So it's also going to – now, this is interesting, and I don't know if this is the case, but it affects apparently any video game Tencent has a stake in as well.
See, they've said no, but they've only said no. And you don't get to interpret laws by what some backroom politician tells you in a whisper ceremony after the poorly written thing is released. It's only going to be adjudicated based on the poorly written thing. So people are saying, oh, no, don't worry about the games. I heard, the White House staffers have told me that's not a problem.
So League of Legends, 100% owned by Tencent.
All of Riot.
Epic Games, 40% owned by Riot. That's Fortnite. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, 11% owned by Bluehole, which is Tencent. Or Tencent.
The new Top Gun movie is financed by Tencent.
Tencent is huge. Tencent is a technology company that owns lots of
games. Supercell.
Oh, lots of stuff, period.
Yeah, lots of stuff. Actually, that's right. And this is part of the bigger issue is you start banning China. I don't know what you have left. This is, who go make their iPhone now? And all the stuff that goes in the iPhone.
It's not the hardware that's a problem because the hardware is such an integral, and I say this you can never predict the Chinese government, but the amount of GDP that Apple's business brings to especially southern China is very high. And one of the things the Chinese government does fear is if they hurt the economy. Like they can do a lot of things as long as the economy is strong, but retaliating on Apple services because Google's not there, retaliating on Apple services like iTunes and the App Store and things like that doesn't hurt China at all.
They certainly were willing to retaliate on the NBA, although I have to say they've shown a little more reticence than we have to go after American companies. So I think that's certainly a potential specter. But who knows what the Chinese government will do? Just on the face of it, it doesn't seem like a good policy. And I have to say, it hurts me because I feel like there's some amazing, creative, wonderful stuff done by young Americans on TikTok, and I think it's a shame that
if you force it to sell to Twitter, like Twitter will just cancel it, and Microsoft will rewrite it in .NET, which is effectively canceling it. It's just like that's not.
Yeah, I don't know, know. And
well, the other. There's lots of. You also have to consider because of the current tone of our current White House, you have to also reflect on the fact that the usership of TikTok is 32% teenagers. Another 29% is people 20 to 30. And given that we have an election coming up, shutting down one of the biggest social networks for young people to communicate messages, to communicate political related sort of content, shutting that down would certainly help one political party and not the other, shall we say. And it's also remember in Tulsa last month or the month before when Trump was like, oh, we've got a million requests for invitations for tickets to my big political rally in Tulsa. We're actually going to have overflow in the parking lot. And it was like the event happened. It was just like crickets. They basically had just a monkeys concert with only half of the monkeys appearing. And one of the reasons for that was that there was a concerted TikTok bit of tomfoolery campaign saying, "Hey, everybody, let's all request tickets to this event and not go." So there might be some retaliation involved as part of the mentality here.
We'll see what happens.
One thing that I find to be
yes, Lory.
One thing I find to be kind of disconcerting about this situation is the fact that with an executive order on, September 15th or whenever it is, using TikTok will effectively be illegal. So
is that the case? You can't use it?
Well, we don't know because the executive order is so vague.
I mean, I know that if
that's what that means, then the individual, which is you and I, using TikTok, that becomes illegal, So
well, that's weird. Do you think it would be?
I don't think so, but I think the whole executive order is going to be withdrawn.
I have to say,
totally
like
honest.
a lot of people, I downloaded TikTok and installed it just so I'd have it in case they banned it.
But that's the thing, though, is if the executive order, depending on what that wording means, you having it on your phone could be considered illegal,
right.
Which might be why Apple would actually not just have to remove it from the App Store, but would have to flip the switch to remove it from your phone. Which means that people who sideload it, because there's going to be people who are going to sideload it. This is Android too. We're talking about not just Apple.
I think they just kill the servers though. That's the simplest way to do it.
Yeah, but
they would great firewall it.
My point being that something that is ubiquitous that so many people use suddenly becomes something that you aren't allowed to by federal government law to use anymore. And that to me is a very scary stepping stone into the kind of sentiment that we talk about a lot of, well, I don't do anything wrong, so you can have access to all my data. Right. Well, guess what? TikTok could become illegal. And if you use it again after it becomes illegal, you're doing something wrong. So now all of this tracking of us and everything that we do, to me, this is this sort of like really big red flag of what it actually means to let organizations have access to all of our personal data, because things that we don't think are a big deal now, out of the blue, might become illegal in 45 days.